Hey, it's Mike back with another city to mutilate. This time around, I destroyed lives through starvation in Foundation, which is a medieval city builder currently in alpha. Just like any celebrated city, Chernobyl being a good example, our kingdom needs a name. I went with starvation is a feeling that will go away. This will serve as a good reminder to our people. My kingdom started with the construction of our village center, which was not a building at all. It was actually just a few boxes that looked like they came from a garage. The surrounding cities must use some sort of natural selection of their people, because I definitely was handed the defective ones. These people couldn't even blink. At least they'll be able to see their demise coming. To make matters worse, I'm pretty sure Mary here had a fake ID. In her picture, she looks 1200 years old, but claims to be 19. Good thing I don't age discriminate when it comes to subjugation. In order to construct more buildings, we needed wood. Picking the buff Ginger to be the lumberjack seemed like the right choice. I also needed to designate citizens to gather berries and mine stone. And I am not a sexist, so I made these mainly males do berry gathering and the dainty females, who lie about their age, to do the mining. Nothing beats homeless people participating in free labor. I must have a way with words. Because I am more important than the freaks with crusty eyes from not blinking, I made sure they built my house called the Lord's Manor first. It made for good storage of the gold I would not be paying anyone with. The Lord's Manor was then renamed to the Bone Zone because I am an immature middle-aged adult. However, if I was going to continue to entice new citizens to join my prison, kingdom, I needed to house them, at least for the time being. I mistakenly allowed everyone to build their own houses. I was showing weakness for the first time, but after some self-reflection, I resumed on the path of righteousness immediately thereafter. This guy finished first. He seemed disappointed with the inside. Ungrateful prick. The world even rewarded me for convincing the defective people to do so much for so little by unlocking more ways to put my servants to work. After the Ginger Jack did a pleasant job of getting rid of the forest, I had enough planks to unlock trading with another kingdom. I could now sell our surplus goods to them or even buy materials needed to expand the kingdom more. As an entrepreneur who built this kingdom from the boxes of a garage, I started making money by selling the same berries back to my own citizens in which they had gathered for absolutely free. That makes me a capitalictator, a combination of a capitalist and a dictator. The money generated from this endeavor was used to buy up a plot of land. Now, as I said, I am not a sexist, and I proved that earlier. But all I'm going to say is that the 3 men gathering berries were able to stockpile a lot more than the 3 women mining stone. With that knowledge, I chose to trade those berries and make some money to fill my treasury. Randomly, I was given a quest to deliver some goods, and I had the ability to choose who gets them. I am not really good at choosing favorites unless I myself am one of the options, which technically was possible, as I could have kept the items to myself, but I thought about it, and if there's one person I do not want to piss off, it's God. So I sent the berries to the church. Speaking of God, I did even more sucking up to him by putting down a church so he could ignore the people's prayers asking for a job that actually pays them instead of having to work for free. At this point, I had built a small establishment, bought 3 plots of land, and convinced 17 lazy-eyed peasants to join my circus. Eventually, you can start promoting your citizens, but don't you dare doubt me. I still made sure every citizen was a very loyal servant, willingly participating in forced labor. The promotion was like one of those title changes just to keep morale up, but otherwise meaningless. After a certain amount of those honorary title changes, you can unlock more buildings and structures for your kingdom. In this case, I unlocked a wooden keep. This was put on the to-do or die list for my people by queuing it to be constructed. A sheep farm was added to the same list as I wanted to make clothes in order to trade and accumulate more spending power at brothels. Any great king needs an army willing to be penetrated by his sword, so I sent these emotionless smurf-looking soldiers to do just that. While the army of the non-blinking made their way to a certain defeat, the buildings I had ordered to be constructed, such as the church, were finally finished. In order to get wool, you obviously need sheep, and just like everything else in Foundation, the sheep just magically appear at the press of a button. Funny thing is, they already had a better lifestyle than my people. A home, some food, and plenty of living space. But unfortunately, this amount of space for an animal pen is a thing of the past. I needed and wanted a more modern approach. Much better. An animal pen that actually resembles one of the future. Humans really are great. Even the devs tried to prevent me from doing this, but you cannot suppress a psychopath. Due to the out-of-control sheep population, space on my new plot of land became limited and I needed more gold to expand. Therefore, I decided to create a bread production line to trade it for gold. After that, the next food to create for trading, and not for feeding my starving people, was cheese. Cheese is created from milk which was gathered from a dairy farm. I built one next to the sheep, and you can bet my life savings of $3.50 that I produce as many cows as possible. I have to say it was utterly chaotic. Meanwhile, my population began to climb higher than our food production. This is when a lot of the peasants suddenly became unhappy. You know that people were at their worst mental state when they just gave up naming themselves and instead were assigned numbers like a herd of animals. Speaking of starving herds of animals, imagine having to work your way through this orgy-infested mosh pit just to get a drink. Looks like this little one actually made it. Ha, just kidding. Turns out she was just trying to end her existence by drowning herself in the milk, which is really sad because I needed that milk to make cheese. Because I refused to hand out any more food to these ungrateful residents, happiness continued on a steep decline, just like these cows here. In fact, this lady got so hangry she marched right out of the city. But I got the last laugh. Her last bit of torture before she left was having to walk by all of the animal farms and wheat fields, wondering why her city continued to starve. Out of curiosity, I wondered where she would end up in life. So like a crazy ex, I stalked her. I can't know for certain what happened to her. All I know is at the end of this trail of tears was a gravesite, and then she disappeared. You see, Karen, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. It's in fact dark. Just ask Friedrich here. She wasn't the only one though. This one scooted on out as well. Funny thing is, she left due to hunger, but literally had a bag of berries on her back. Global happiness had now reached a new milestone of negative 324, with 61 total citizens. I was a very proud ruler, but I felt I could achieve much more. This unhappiness value was affected by everything that they gathered being traded instead of given back to them like you're actually supposed to do. Then I had my greatest revelation. Why on earth am I housing these people if they're willing to starve and work for free all this time? So I went to the one guy who was the most useless, named William. You see, William was just sitting here pretending to sell clothes that we didn't even have. I asked him where his house was, he showed me, and then with a push of a button, I deleted his house like a god. You won't believe what happened next. That red-haired leprechaun actually stormed out of my city with the sack of my gold after I did that. I had learned my lesson. Starvation and free labor is fine, but if you remove the home which had nothing inside in the first place, then it's all over. So I proceeded to delete every house there was. Finally, with all the houses demolished, I had a lot more space to work with. And this is when things went from bad to Tiananmen Square. The people seemed to be gathering and possibly protesting. You ever see two people who are about to fight and they get so close to each other almost as if they were going to kiss instead? Yeah, I think that's what's happening here too. But I was less scared of the two dudes reenacting Fight Club and more worried about this psycho lady with her hand on her hip and a shovel in the other hand. She most definitely has murdered all the women her unfaithful husband had an affair with. But I just told her my diseased mad cows were very hungry and I would do anything to not let them starve. And lo and behold, she was back to the quarry to mine me some stone. Now that's empowering your employees. As happiness began to drop faster than the death count of the Black Plague, the free labor continued along with the occasional citizen packing up and leaving. Although we had dropped down to 53 citizens and negative 536 happiness, I was still generating decent cash flow. Now I understand why Jeff Bezos does it. As time went on, the city grew smaller as depression and famine increased. I honestly thought after removing all of the houses that my city would be in shambles, but it actually continued to operate. The rate at which my villagers left my city was extremely low compared to the cash I was generating. Even the game acknowledged my great leadership capabilities because in the status alert section, it clarified all was good, even though every single citizen was homeless and malnourished. At this point, a lot of gamers would now try to course correct the ship and turn it around to make a prosperous kingdom. Instead, I drove this ship straight towards hell and never looked back. I proceeded to let my game run just to see how many plebeians I could get to leave. It was very surprising that in order to get down to 9 citizens remaining in the kingdom, it took over 1 in-game year. That converted to 3 real-life hours that I wish I could get back to use to cancel people on Twitter instead. At one point, we had eclipsed negative 1,000 in total depression. But don't believe me or not, the average actually began to go back up after we lost a few more people. Turns out, the citizens who were given numbers instead of names were the ones that enjoyed the lifestyle of the kingdom, thus their happiness remained positive. This offset the negative Nancys who had a whopping negative 2,000 happiness. But those are just the type of people you cannot please no matter what you do. Eventually the town whittled down to 4 citizens and I officially retired as a ruler, leaving the kingdom in their hands now. By using starvation and homelessness, I was able to build an everlasting empire, just like Rome. My empowerment does get stronger with every upload, so in order to save yourself, subscribe with notifications by hitting that bell so you can witness the next tragedy. Oh, and like this video to save a cow, and I'll see you in the next distasteful video.